All right, welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to go through some of the lists that came out on top, basically the top 4 lists of our Stage 0 One Piece Circuit Series. And again, last week we streamed it on Eggman's Twitch, and as well as posted the list on his channel, and then this week is on mine. And I stream it on my YouTube, of course. So if you want to participate for next week, it is every Wednesday except for the last week. We have 2 more tournaments. They are completely free. The winner of the most points, etc., is going to be winning a free Romance Dawn box. And it's really just to prep everyone for the Treasure Cup that's coming up in February. So it's going to be a bunch of events, and so far so good. And if you want to see more, definitely subscribe, like, dislike, all that other stuff, and comment below what you think about these lists and if you want to see anything else. Okay, first off, this is pretty much all of the players who played. We had 18 players, and here are all the leaders. We had a lot of Dofi. A good amount of Dofi. It was crazy. I think one might be a little off. It might be one in the Zoro and one in the Kid. I'm not totally sure, but I'm pretty sure this is the exact count after we requested everyone to submit their deck list and everything else like that. But 5 Dofi, 4 Law, 4 Kid, 2 Red Luffy, 1 Purple Kaido, which is surprising because we had like 4 or 5 Kaido last week, 1 Odin, and 1 Zoro, which is also surprising because I think some people, or a lot of people I should say, are now sort of pushing off the Zoro for some reason. I think people are understanding how to starve a Zoro's hand, how to gas them out post turn 4, etc. Or maybe for our community and as well as the circuit, the people who have been playing, they just want to kind of test other things out. And the more you test other decks, the better that you kind of understand how they function and how you can go against that matchup. Because these could be all purple Kaido and as well as Zoro players. We really don't know. Either way, 5 Dofi and 4 Law, 4 Kid, kind of not surprising, especially after seeing the PBG case tournament. It had over 130 people, 150 people or so. Probably the largest One Piece tournament from an official organizer that we've seen so far. So it doesn't really, at least in the US, it doesn't really surprise me that we do see that kind of translate here with Kid and Law, but no, not that much Purple Kaido. So I don't know if people believe that Dofi has a better matchup against Kid, Law, or Kaido, because that's kind of the things that you really want to watch out for. And then Red Luffy is kind of like the translation from Zoro, where if you want to play red and you want to have a longer end game, or mid to end game I should say, Red Luffy is going to be the one to do that, where Zoro kind of, again, gas out probably turn 4. And I think Kid and probably Dofi has a really good matchup against Zoro, as long as they survive the early game. And as long as they do that, they should be... Which device is this? La 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 la. All right, so let's start with Just Not Happa. So hopefully we're saying your name right. Sorry, but he is the back-to-back undefeated winner of both circuits, which I'm very happy about, and his list is very interesting. There's a few things that actually changed from the last list. So if you looked at or watched Eggman's video for the last week's circuit, and as well as the breakdown for that, there's a few changes, including Raizo, and as well as just numbers as far as ratios go. So the things that really pop out to me are, I think these are, this deck is basically focusing on value, right? So the Momo, the Bonnie, the Killer, the Raizo, even the 1-cost blocker, all of these are kind of like value cards, right? Cheap, and as well as long as I have the setup and as long as I'm protected and have been protecting, these are really going to be really good for me. And I think as Kid, you really want to get past that early point, get to that mid to late game, and have a really good setup as far as a board state, and really control their board state. Like first 7 Dawn are you just controlling the board state, having some stuff that includes the things that I stated, and then go down to the 7 cost kid, and as well as the 8 cost kid, and of course Trevarga Law or Kiku in between, basically. And I think this really does focus on that game plan, which I think obviously with back-to-back undefeateds, he's doing a good job about it. I think one of the things that really pop up to me are like the 1 and 2 ofs. So the 1 killer here, the 2 Beppo, which he didn't have in the last list. He took out the 2 3 cost blockers, which I do agree with. You know, I don't think it really comes up as much as you may think. You can play it off Law, you can play it on 8, but it kind of feels kind of bad to play for 3 just for a 4K blocker when you can play a killer with 1 additional Dawn to draw and defend yourself. You can play a Raizo, so that way you can swing as long as they don't get rid of it. Nico Robin doesn't touch it unless they reduce it, that type of thing. The double Momo as well as Bonnie. There's a lot of other stuff. The Cat Viper that you can use for 3 Dawn instead, or even Izu or Kiku, right? So the Beppo, you don't really have any targets for Heart Pirates, right? So it's really just going to be a 2K counter. And I think what's happening here is that we're maxing out the 2Ks here, and there's the searchable, of course, and then Beppo just comes in as some more defense for your blockers, and as well as the 8 cost kid, right? 2 7 cost kid is probably fine. 2 to 3 is usually what I see. I think I've been playing 3. I've been playing 3 or 3, 8 and 7, and it's been doing pretty good because I think the 7 is just that midway point of like, okay, if I have this 7 cost kid live and I give the 8 cost out, then I should be fine. I think I'm going to be in a good spot as long as I have a decent hand. If you don't have a decent hand, then it goes back to the value-based cards that we were talking about before. Now, the other 2 things are Pumpkinson and as well as Straw Sword. Pumpkinson is a kind of a strong card. It does feel a little weird to pay 2 sometimes for it, but it is a 4K counter, and as well as rest down of 4 costs, which it's a good amount of targets, right? Like Nico Robin, Okiku in the mirror, and even like any of the targets for Dofi, right? So those things really do work out. And I do really like the trigger effect. Like everything about Pumpkinson is really a tempo card. Having 1, it's like whatever. And I think in this build, he's really focusing on just reducing those event cards that really don't do anything with your current Dawn, or at least just in general. Like you don't really want to get clogged up. And I think sometimes you do get clogged up in Kid because there's a lot of supernovas that don't have counter power, and adding event cards just kind of make that worse. And then 2 Straw Sword. You know, I like Straw Sword. A lot of people don't like it. You know, sometimes when people see Straw Sword, you're like, why? But hear me out. It taps down anything, which means in the mirror you can tap down the kid. In Law you can tap down anything. There's you can tap down a Trevarga Law. You can do any of Blue's blockers. You can do anything that Okiko isn't up for 2, or Izo doesn't touch, which I guess are the things I just mentioned. But either way, the trigger effect, it's kind of lame, but the fact that Straw Sword enables your leader to kind of take game, and as well as to, again, that tempo, those first 7 Dawn, those first few turns that you're controlling their board state, and then just getting to that value base setup, this is really good. I think Straw Sword is cool. I can understand if you don't play it, or if you want to reduce it, because it does get a little useless in hand, especially if you're trying to go for game, or at least don't need it, like you just need counter power type thing. But the 4 Basil Hawkins, I think the reason why he did this is because the expectation of Kid, right? It's really good against Kid, person who keeps the Basil Hawkins, which is why I like Straw Sword, right? Like if they pay 5, you pay 2, and then you put a lot of Dawn on something and you just swing at it, they're probably not going to defend it, and if they do, then they wasted a lot of cards just for a Basil, and then you just take the hit for the 1, and then you just pass turn and then do it again, right? So it's kind of like Straw Sword is like the green version of Jet Pistol, if you want to think about it that way, but not nearly as good. Basil Hawkins at 4 again for the mirror, for Dofi, for Law, for maybe even Zoro. Those are all really good. And being at 4, just making sure he sees it. That's what that means. Like making sure he sees it, because you already have Bonnie to search it out. So like playing at 2 is probably still fine, even at 3. But 4 means I want this in my hand and I'm playing it on turn 5. So I'm guessing, which I do experience that. If you play it on turn 5 and it survives, it does a lot of work for you. So I'm very curious to see, what the reasoning is for that. I haven't really seen too many other lists with 4 Basil Hawkins. It's usually 4 Law. If we're gonna do something crazy like that, it's not even that crazy, but I think that's what it is. Or 4 8 cost Kid, because that's what people focus on. But Basil, I guess because it is such a deck that controls the board so well, Basil is going to be, one of those best cards to do that. So cool, very, very cool. Shout out to him. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below as far as this build goes. All right, next up is Kaban with his Law deck. So I think this deck, or at least a version of this deck, he was actually on stream for a short time for the PPG event, the case tournament that happened about a week ago. And I think the commentators were saying that it's a little bit different from other decks, and I think that's what Law wants, right? As long as you get to that 5, which we are going to do that with pretty much all the 1 cost being maxed out that you really want, the 1 cost blocker as well as Gordon being left out on that, but those still have their functions. And I think when we really think about it, he's able to do that, and pretty much everything that you play outside like 5 and like 3 and under are gonna do something for you, right? I think that's what it is. I think that's what the subconscious thing of him building this deck this way, where Otama enables you to use your jet pistols, which is only playing at 3. I feel like you play this at 4 just so you can max out on Otama as well as Gordon. But that's just me. I mean, really, even then, you can just Otama or Gordon, an 8 cost Kid, and it still does the same thing that a jet pistol would do, because you can just swing at it. But again, everything that you're doing here, you get a blocker out of Chopper, you get a blocker out of Capone Gang. I should just call him Gang now, because I can never say BJ. You get the draws out of Bonnie, you get the draw out of Nami. That rhymed, and what the heck. Altama and Gordon again are doing the work for 8 cost Kid as well as jet pistol combos, and then pretty much everything else. When you think about it, again, this is killing something 3 or less. This is wrestling something 4 or less. This is giving your leader or one of your characters 2 Dawn for that extra boost, and then you can just use the leader effect to return it, play a killer out of that, or something else like a 5-drop Law. In order to get a 2k counter back in your hand, and then just use that as a function. So, again, these are all very functional cards where, again, Fat Viper to rest down of 1 cost or whatever it may be. All of these things are doing something for you. I think that's really what it is. And of course, Nico Robin being at 4, Nico Robin just does a lot for you, right? You play a Law, you put in the Nico Robin, you swing with it, and then you KO something. It's just a broken card, right? It's just really, really good. It just gets rid of everything in the mirror. It just feels good to just have a Nico Robin and have it live and be protected. 3 Zoro, which is understandable. I think a lot of these have counter power, and you're kind of pushing away from that. There's not too many cards outside the blockers that don't have counter power. 4 Law, which is understandable. It's really good in the Law Leader. You can just do a lot of sequencing for it. I did a whole video for that, so I'm not going to talk about it too much, but again, really accentuates where you can play the Brook, you can play the Law right after, return it, get the Zoro out, swing with it, or have the killer to pop something. You already know the deal. And have we seen this Izu, when we were spectating him for the last round as well, come out in order to control the board. But yeah, and then we have Radical Beam, which there are a good amount of event cards for red, and I think it's just in general, but Radical Beam is a 2 cost, and then 2 or less life, you have the additional 2 costs, which is pretty easy in Law. Like, you take the first hit usually every time, so that way you can play more things early into the game, and then later into the game or mid game, you're going to take another hit pretty much almost guaranteed. So like being on 2 is usually where Law wants to be anyway. There's just extra cards in your hand, and it's just more things you can see. And then Radical Beam just gets you that extra 2k. So I can understand the pick for that. And then 3 Jet Pistol, again, I think you should max out on Jet Pistol. Who cares if it is nothing with a non-counter? The trigger effect is broken. People forget. We've seen this so many times on stream and other streams where people just forget to put an extra Dawn on their 6k, and then they get punished for the life trigger and Jet Pistol. So I do believe that is something to max out for sure. Shout out to Kaban. This is Sensei Spank. Oh, man, I can never say your name. Sorry. But this is third place, the Luffy deck. And just doing Luffy things, right? I don't play Luffy so much. I played it when it first came out, and I thought he was pretty okay. This is really all Eggman. He is big on Luffy. He is he thinks it is the better red leader, which I understand. I agree too, because I think the starter deck Nami is the best thing that you can have in combination with the Luffy. You get so much value out of it when you have this Luffy getting pumped up to 7, I believe, with the additional effects. The Luffy here already gets the effects with the starter deck, and as well as the leader effect, so you don't have to waste additional Dawn for that. Just unlike in other red decks, this guy gets rush as well, which is why he's playing at 3, which makes sense. And yeah, I mean, overall, the one of Shanks for the big boys against Kaido, and as well as 8-cost Kid makes sense. Law again against Kid, or really anything that is more than 6k that Jet Pistol can't take care of. We are playing the 4 Jet Pistol in here. We are playing the 4 Zoro over here. So I mean, it is looking like a normal Luffy list, honestly. I don't know if this is eggs either, but the one of Round Table again for 8-cost Kid, and then Diambo Jembe. I can never say this name either, at 2, which also makes sense because majority of the characters, if not all, that do swing on a consistent basis can now use this. And the trigger effect is actually pretty nice too. I don't think anyone ever talks about it, but cool. Luffy's cool. I think it will top consistently throughout Treasure Cup. I think it will, but I don't think it's good as Kid. So eat it, egg. All right, shout out to Pac-Man. He played Odin. We put on stream, and then he lost. It was his only loss. He went through one after that. Yeah, I mean, Odin's cool, and the only downside about this is that it is like halfway a Kid deck. Like, what do you think about it? Because it has Momo, which of course is Wano Country. You need it in here. But then we have Bonnie, we have Gang, we have Killer, we have Cat Viper, which, I mean, these are kind of understandable because if you discard any of the Wano Country, you can play any of these things for 1 or 2 anyway, or you get that extra 1 for Killer. There's interesting things that you can do with Odin, right? You can just manipulate your Dawn in a way that other things can't, right? You can just play out Okiku, or you can play out Raizo, and then get 2 Dawn back, and then play a Cat Viper, or have a Killer to protect something like your life, or you can do Yamoto, where you can play her out for 5, untap the 2, or get 2 Dawn back, play the Cat Viper to put down the blocker, the time that you do swing, etc. So I mean, it's just one of those things. I think we have 4 Kinemon, which I think, yeah, Raizo, Okiko, Jiro, and I mean, he's not going to sack with this. I think these 3 are going to be the best targets to restand. Well, I'm dumb. Okiko and Raizo are going to be the best targets to restand with Kinemon. And then, of course, the on-play effect is pretty sweet as well. But overall, like I said, it's halfway a Kid deck. Paradise Waterfall is pretty dope. I don't have as much experience with Odin as I should, but overall, if he went 3-1 with it in this tournament, I'm sure he'll be able to do pretty well in other tournaments. Hopefully that breakdown was okay. And if you liked it, definitely subscribe if you're new. Let me know in the comments below what you think about the deck list, and of course join us for our circuit. It's completely free, and I'm trying my best to build a community within the Discord as well for One Piece. So I'll see you in the next one.